first of all, I'd be remiss to not start out by, paying respect to Bill Tobin, who was a great friend to me, great mentor. Very, very fortunate to have been around him the time that I was, not just myself, but a lot of other guys in our personnel department. So he will be greatly missed. Learned a ton from him, and it's a lot of the lasting memories and things that I learned from him will stick with me for a long time. And I think I speak for our personnel department as well. So, it's been a tough week, but our thoughts and prayers are with the Tobin family and the rest of his friends and guys that he's worked with around the league in his phenomenal career. In my opinion, one of the best that's ever done it. So, that being said, he always did tell me to keep it close to the vest in terms of the information that we've worked all year on. That being said, I'll do my best to answer your guys' questions as well as I can, but that's something that he taught me and will stick with me. So go ahead and fire away.
So you're not going to tell us who you draft?
I wish I could. We could have some more detailed discussions probably after the draft, but can't do that right now.
You get 4 picks in the top, I guess, 97, right? What is the draw? Is there a particular draw to the top 100? Is there a something about that number, the top 100 players in the draft?
I think in that top 100, specifically the top 3 rounds, you're always looking to get starting caliber players in those top 3 rounds. That's all the grading scales I've been a part of in my career. You're looking for a starting caliber player, obviously to different degrees, high level guys in the first round, second round, and so on. So that's the goal. It obviously never works out. Every draft's different. There's different strengths and weaknesses and different depths of each individual draft. But that's the goal. It is good to have that extra third round pick that we have this year. As hopefully getting another starter, we could use it as ammo to potentially trade up. We could explore trading back, so it gives you a lot of different flexibility that way.
What positions are in this draft?
There's a lot of positions that are deep. The quarterbacks obviously jump to mind. We're fortunate to not be in that market, at least high in the draft. I know a lot has been made of the offensive tackles. There's a lot of offensive tackles and offensive linemen in general that we feel great about. Both lines of scrimmage, really, and I think there's always going to be wide receivers and DBs, and with the passing game expanding the way it has in college football, I think those guys are going to continue to be in high supply, but also high demand, just with the passing game at our level as well.
Like, how important is playing time for tackles? I mean, there's obviously one that doesn't have a lot of starting games under his belt. It's highly regarded. I mean, how important to you is playing time?
It's important. I mean, it's a piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of different factors, physically, mentally, character-wise, medical-wise, that we factor in. It's definitely important. I think the most important thing is what his tape looks like in the snaps that he has played. There's guys at a number of positions, not just tackle, that have limited play experience, whether that's high-level guys in front of them or a medical reason as far as why they miss time. But it's a factor that we have to put in there, and I think different guys are at different stages of development. There's some guys that have played very few snaps but need more development than others, whereas there's guys that have played maybe a fewer amount of snaps, but the tape that they have is high quality.
Are there traits that during your time working with this coaching staff in particular that maybe they've shifted your opinion on to put in more value on as you've had draft discussions with them over the years?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. We do one advantage we have is all of our scouts live here and we're on the same page with our coaching staff. I mean, we're having constant day-to-day conversations. So I think in the makeup of the player, in the scheme, in terms of what we're looking for, we're really on the same page, and that's evolved over Zach's time here. The 6 years that it's been. So I think that's an advantage that we have, and we've really used it as an advantage.
Mike, what's the biggest way that your guys' process has changed in recent years? I mean, as you go every year, you tinker with it, learn from mistakes or successes. Is there ways that it has changed in the last few years that have helped you guys?
I think we're constantly looking to evolve it. You know, we've got a really good staff that we lean on their experience. We lean on our coaches. We're always looking to advance the analytics part of it. You know, and just the technology that's out there and available. We would be stupid to not use all of the information that's out there at our disposal. And we're constantly, you know, even we've got 2 days until the draft. We're constantly looking to pull in every tiny little piece of information that we possibly can, making phone calls, whether that's studies or you know, studying different trends and all that stuff. So I think in a lot of different areas, there's probably not one that I could specifically point to, but a lot of different areas, it just continues to constantly evolve year to year.
How has, you know, it's like Sam Francis integrated himself. How have you guys found ways to work what he does into what you guys do to find information that's tangible and useful on draft weekend?
Yeah, he's been awesome. I mean, the things that he's done for us in our scouting system and the reports that we can run have been amazing. I mean, we can bring up historical rankings for anything, you know, anything from arm length to tackle for loss production to you know, certain types of routes that a receiver has run. We can kind of rank that historically, and we have it in our system both within this draft class and historically. So that's some of the stuff that he's done for us. You know, Elizabeth has had a hand in that and some of those reports that she's helped us out with as well. So again, like I said, the more information, the better. That has expanded over the past handful of years, and we'll continue to add to it and evolve in that way.
How much do you scale competition, the level of competition that a college prospect might show when you're evaluating them?
It's a factor for sure. I mean, all things being equal, you'd like to have the guy that's played in the big games, you know, those big playoff games, those big conference championship type of games. But at the same time, we're not going to discount. We've taken guys from small schools, and you know, we'll continue to take the best player. But you know, we're looking for tiebreakers. There's different tiebreakers that you can use. It could be the level of competition in this case. It could be medical character. It could be scheme fit, intelligence level, toughness. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it, and definitely level of competition is one. But there's also guys, you know, that we scout. Most of them, if they're a good enough prospect at a lower level, they go to an all-star game and they step up, whether it's the East-West Shrine game, the Senior Bowl, whatever the case is. Then you know, you see them at maybe against a little bit better competition in that type of setting.
When you say medical character, what is that? Can you define that?
Medical is it's a combination of their injury history and then how our doctors and trainers grade them. You know, we'll grade them all A through F. You know, wouldn't get into any players specifically, obviously, but they'll grade them. It's both a combination of what they've had in the past injury-wise, and then projecting their durability going forward. Obviously, it's never a perfect science, and you know, there's unpredictable things that can happen. A guy could never have had an injury in his college career, been completely healthy, and then get hurt as a rookie. So, you know, again, that's another thing that we take all the technology and all the information we have and try to better that process on a year-to-year basis. And I think Matt Summers and his staff have done a great job with that.
Big picture wise, especially in the earlier rounds, what goes into balancing best available player versus teams' immediate needs?
That's always tough. You would like to not drop down a level of player for sure to reach for a need. I think, you know, all things being equal, as long as there's not other issues there, you would like to take, you know, like to fill the need ideally if you got two guys with the same grade up there. But it's a constant conversation, and those are kind of the things that we finished up over the past week or so. Just when you're combining guys with very similar grades between different positions, and what we do is go through and stack them. In this case, picking at 18, we stack them 1 through 18, 1 through 49, and so on into our later round picks as well. We'll obviously recalibrate that board going into day 2 and day 3. So there's a lot of really good discussion that we have between our personnel staff, coaches, ownership, and you know, like I mentioned before, there's just a lot of different things that you weigh, and the need and the best player available is a common discussion that we have.
You referenced Elizabeth's health reports. How she kind of impacted maybe on the evaluation process of going ready for this, either your during the course of the season?
She's been awesome. I mean, I think her mindset is just anything she can do to help. She always wants to, lend a helping hand, whether it's a different perspective, looking at maybe running some reports on how players are viewed on the outside, maybe more so we're not just so dialed in tunnel vision on what we see. And focused on our board, and then also looking at other teams, and maybe that can help us with their needs, and if we want to go up and target a specific player, or if we maybe can move back. There's just a lot of it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing that she's helped the most with, but it's just a lot of different areas and a lot of different reports, and like I said, taking advantage of the information that we have.
Have you had to tweak the age of the prospect that you potentially target? Some prospects are older now with the COVID year. How has that impacted things? Because you just look at the ages now, and
It is, yeah. I mean, we're looking at guys that are, not just fifth-year seniors now. They're sixth, seventh, maybe even eighth-year guys. So it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but you take all the information. There's a lot of different factors. We're not going to eliminate a guy just because he's 24 or 25 years old, but that's a piece of the puzzle that we have to slot in. Again, all things being equal, you'd probably want the younger guy with more potential upside. If you see those, say you see a 21-year-old and a 25-year-old as the same caliber of player right now, then maybe that younger guy could potentially have a longer career, first of all, and maybe develop into something to surpass the older player. But again, it's a piece of the puzzle. It's something that we've had to do to adjust. Hopefully here in the next couple of years, it'll get back to normal with, after we're far enough removed from the COVID year. But it's like anything involved with that, it's just something that we've had to adjust and try to make the best out of it.
Get a lot of questions about trying to learn players' background, character, and things like that. Do people ever steer you wrong? I always wonder about a coach who wants his kid to get drafted, so he might say great things, but then you find out after the fact, I'm not sure that was so on.
I think through experience in scouting, you learn who you can trust and who you can't. We've got a really good staff upstairs that has developed a lot of contacts over the years that you know who has steered you right or steered you wrong in the past. But yes, that happens. There's definitely bias. If you're talking to coaches or other staff members, it potentially could help them with recruiting in terms of, they want their player to be drafted as high as possible. But also, you have to determine and filter through, so to speak, in terms of who's putting their name on the line in terms of, when you go back to them the next time, you want to know that you got good information from that person. So it is a balance. I think the more that you've done it, the more experience that you have, it's that much easier to navigate.
On the topic of background, what difference, if any, do you notice within the NIL landscape now of players coming out that money, the making big money in the draft?
I think it has some advantages. Players are getting paid a lot of money in college football now, so it kind of helps us. Previously, we had to project how would they be with money in their pocket, and how could they manage that, coming to a new city, potentially having millions of dollars. It takes that projection element for some of those higher end guys out of it, so it makes it a little bit easier in that regard, and we can see, is this guy going to be mature with his money, or is he getting this hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever the case is, and NIL money, is he just blowing it and being acting irrationally? So that part of it can help, but it's just something that we'll continue to navigate going forward.
What kind of impact does being so close to being in the championship window or being in it, and then having a franchise quarterback have on the draft prep process and kind of the mentality you got going into it, knowing how close you guys are to potentially being to kind of being at that championship level?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a sense of urgency for sure. I mean, we know we're close. I mean, we believe we've got a really good roster. It's far from perfect. There's definitely some holes that we need to fill. There's constant, what our holes may be perceived as right now are not necessarily what they could be into the future. So that goes along to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the best player available and building up the depth. But there for sure is a sense of urgency in terms of we think we're right on the cusp of being where we want to be. And, we like I said, we've got 10 picks. We've got flexibility. If there's certain guys that we really target and we really covet and think can get us over that hump, we would be stupid to not go and do what it takes to get a certain player if we think it can make that kind of impact. So it's weighing, what you potentially could have to give up to get those players if you're talking about a trade. But there's a lot of guys in this class that we think can be those type of impact players to get us where we want to be.
Go ahead, Coach.
I was going to say, you guys have, thank you, Kelly. You guys have a lot of consistency in the scouting department from region to region. How's the transfer portal impacted that, with all these guys transferring? How has that impacted you guys as area scouts?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. We, again, our staff is close. We talk every day. We're on the same page. So if a guy transferred from a West Coast school to a Northeast school or a Southeast school, we're in constant communication. We've got contacts at those different schools, and sometimes we're going back to earlier in their career, freshman, sophomore year, talking to their coaches at their first school to kind of put the whole pieces of the puzzle, put it all together in terms of the guy's character profile. And sometimes, a lot of times, right out of high school, they're immature young kids, freshman, sophomore year, and you get a completely different story from where they ended up their career, junior, senior year, or whatever the case is. So that's something that I think we use to our advantage as well for our staff, and it almost seems like it's out of the norm for a kid to stay at one school his whole career nowadays. It's most of the guys we're scouting, it seems like, have transferred. So we have to rely on our contacts, rely on our scouts to go back and track down and build that character profile over their whole college career.
What's the challenge of evaluating players who might have exceptions, like a player who has shorter arms or a player who, the 40 times a step slower, but still has a lot you like? What are the challenges and unique aspects of those types of conversations?
Yeah, they're definitely challenges. We look at historical context. How many guys have been successful with this arm length, with this 40 time, with this production level, with this size. You can always, if you want to make a case for a player, you can always point to a guy that's been successful with whatever the measurable or aspect of the player's game may be. So again, it's constant conversation. It's weighing the good with the bad. If the guy just has maybe one outlier piece to his profile, so to speak, but we love the rest of it, then it's probably not as big of an issue, unless it's one thing that's been a huge trend that has caused players to fail in the past. And if that's the case, we'll probably steer away from it.
How do you feel like the portal and transfers that you guys are seeing make impact development for people to be, or players to be pro ready? And when y'all get them, how much is maybe all the shifting? Have you got a sense of what that impact has on the development once they get here?
I think it could be a good or a bad thing. I think players moving around, moving to new cities, we've scouted guys that have had 5, 6 different offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, position coaches. So the adaptability level, it does make it a little bit harder to project how they're going to be without that consistency and that trajectory. If they had the more continuity on their coaching staff and they were at one college for 4 or 5 years and weren't bouncing around, but the adaptability and their ability to learn football and bounce between different types of teaching styles from different coaches, and like I said, on a personal level, living in different cities and all of that is something that helps our projection in terms of the way that they are going to transition to the pro game.
How important is it, this may seem obvious from your background, how important is it as a scout to keep an open mind when you're looking at any prospect?
Oh, it's huge. I think a lot of times people go in with preconceived notions. Maybe you may be saw the guy on TV or you heard what his coach said about him, but you have to watch the film, and that's the most important part of it. I mean, that's no matter what the measurements are, no matter what the medical is, character, how fast of a 40 time they ran, that's what you have to go to, is go to the tape. And if you don't go to the tape with an open mind in your evaluation, then you're probably going to be off a little bit in terms of where the guy's value needs to be on our final board. And again, that's what's most important.
What is the biggest difference to you in your experience watching the film versus seeing a guy live?
I think seeing a guy live gives you more conviction for sure. Once you see him move around, just see the explosiveness in their movements in person, their bend, flexibility, quickness, just sheer size, height, length, all of those things. That gives you more conviction on the player, but again, the film is for sure the most important. How the guy plays football, and we try to study at least 4 or 5 games at a minimum on all of these guys, and a lot of these guys have built up a lot of resume in terms of their tape over time, and yeah, I mean seeing them live is very helpful, but how they play on tape is for sure the most important.
If you have a guy that doesn't work out for whatever reason, does the staff go back and do a deep dive, or okay, what happened, why didn't this one work out?
If a guy doesn't work out at the combine, or just work out and be successful?
Yeah, if he does not have a successful career.
Yeah, that's part of the studies that we do, like I mentioned with some of the analytic data stuff, reports that we run, for sure. We go back. If there's a trend on, like Charlie asked earlier, with an outlier, measurable, whatever it may be, if there's certain trends in character, intelligence level, size, whatever the physical trait may be, yeah, we definitely go back and run studies and say, hey, is there a pattern on why these guys maybe haven't panned out? And there's some very good, obviously not stuff that we would put out there publicly, but there's some very good information that we've learned, and we constantly, like I said, are trying to tweak our process and get better, and that's part of the way we do it.
The offensive tackle class as a whole, how does it stack up from previous groups that you've looked at?
It's a really good class. I would have to look back at all of them. I'm so dialed in on this class right now that I would have to take a step back and think and look at where we had guys ranked maybe in previous years. But it's a very good tackle class. There's a lot of guys that we like up top, and then later second, third, fourth, and so on rounds. But guys with different strengths, different weaknesses, different backgrounds. So it's really just about picking your flavor and seeing what fits us best with the Bengals, and then stacking those guys on our board in order.
Mike, from a scout's perspective, you guys are doing this year round. What is the most passionate debate portion of the program for you guys? I'm sure a lot of it happens towards the end here. Maybe this is it, but is it when you guys are without the coaches back in Mobile? Is it during the season? When do you guys have the most passionate debates about players and ranking and strategy as a personnel staff?
As a personnel staff, it's probably in our round of meetings right before the combine. We have passionate debates. I mean, it's always very respectful and professional, because we know our guys have put in the work, and we know to reach that opinion, they're not just flying by the seat of their pants and just throwing out something irrational. So it's a very respectful and professional process. But we do get passionate, because there's certain players that you feel like you've put the work in on, and you feel very convicted about your evaluation on them. So we'll have some very good debates in that setting, and then we bring the coaches in later in the process. That's kind of our round of meetings that we're just finishing up, really. And again, it's very, very professional. It's not, guys pounding their chest or standing up on a table and screaming or anything like that. It's it's maybe it would be disappointing for people that would envision something like that happening, but the passion definitely shines through for sure in that setting. And the good thing is, like I said, we're on the same page on a lot of guys. I mean, there's only it'd be hard to put a number on it, but there's not a ton of outliers that we have huge splits on that we really need to find common ground on. And if we do, if we have that big of a difference of opinion on guys, then we may end up just steering away from that guy altogether.
So if that's happening before the combine, how much weight, if any, do you put on the combine?
We certainly put weight on the combine. How the guys test for sure in their athletic testing. Huge piece of it is our interviews, and then really the medical part of the combine has always, in my opinion, been the most important. Before the combine, the meetings I refer to are just our personnel staff, and then we bring the coaches in after the combine and pro days. But the combine is certainly important. I mean, just the on-field portion of it, again, like I mentioned, it could be a tiebreaker. It could kind of lead us to go back to the tape like, hey, we thought this guy was a 4.5 type of guy in his play speed on tape, and he ran 4.3. Let's go back to the tape and make sure we felt good about that. Or, again, if it's a tie and a guy maybe tested better, then it could lead us to believe, hey, this guy has more upside in the future to develop and maybe surpass the guy that maybe could be more close to maxed out.
Is there an example of somebody's conviction, whether it was one of the scouts or a position coach, on a player sending you back to rethink your opinion? Or does that happen all the time? Or do you have examples of when that really put a player that you guys ended up drafting up the board with just, kind of one person's real strong conviction about this guy will work out?
I don't have, there's not one that really pops to the top of my head in terms of that. It happens so often. And again, it's usually not huge splits. I mean, you may be talking about one guy has a second round grade, arguing for him in the second round, and the initial grade was third round, or whatever the case is. It's usually not a huge 2, 3, 4 round difference in terms of that. But those conversations are constantly going on, and they'll continue even here over the next 2 days. I mean, we're not going to just lock the board up and go into Thursday. We're going to continue the discussions, and like I said, there's constantly information that'll still be coming in. We've still had some calls with college coaches over the past few days, and different sources, and we'll just keep working through it and keep having those conversations until we kind of put the final touches on the board. It'd probably be at some point Thursday morning or afternoon, and then we'll go into the draft and let the board speak to us from there.
So there's been a time where you've shifted a little bit in the last 48 hours of prospects. I'm not sure it's not huge shifts.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Not major shifts, but maybe just little tweaks here and there. Like, hey, this guy is the whatever 7th ranked at this position, and we want to flop him with the 8th guy. So it's minor tweaks here and there, and again, it's due to more information coming in, due to more conversation between our personnel staff, coaching staff, ownership. And again, there's so many different factors. Could be scheme fit. Could be one of our coaches maybe had another Zoom with the guy and was really impressed with what he did talking football, going through, watching tape with him and all of that. So there's a lot of different factors, but the board is pretty solidified right now. There's definitely not going to be any major shifts over the next 48 hours or whatever it is until the draft starts.
Is it safe to say you try to give Duke as much data as possible and then let him handle, like you were just talking about, the logistics of manipulating the big board?
Yeah, that's our job. Working with and working for Duke, that's our job, to provide him every piece of information he possibly can. He can have at his disposal to make the best pick for us and acquire the best player, however that may be. And he does a great job of facilitating everything. And he's one of the best in the league at it, I think, in my opinion. And yeah, that's our job, and that's our job to provide him with the like I said, everything he needs to draft the best player possible.